Well, voters overwhelmingly passed Amendment 2, placing the right to hunt and fish in Florida's Constitution. While some remain concerned about its impact on the environment and wildlife, WGCU's Jennifer Crawford explains how this change to the Constitution aims at protecting traditions.
I have been hunting in Florida and around the country since before I could remember.
For Lee County residents Scott and Chrissy Rush,
holy cow, Chrissy.
Hunting is not just a sport. It's a way of life they are passionate about preserving.
It's history, it's tradition, it's some of the healthiest meat that exists. It's a completely renewable resource, it's organic, it's absolutely the best nutrition that you can find.
So this is some of this year's harvest here. We've got breakfast link, this is wild hog, harvested in September of 24. We've got some venison backstrap. We've got ground venison.
Creating and cooking up hearty dishes from their hunting trips around the country.
This is venison chili, just like you would make any other pot of chili, except this is all wild game.
Is routine for Chrissy and Scott and their family.
We have two girls. They enjoyed growing up on the farm and hunting with us and eating and helping us process the meat.
They believe their fundamental right to hunt, passed down from generation to generation, comes with great responsibility to be good stewards of the land and the wildlife.
We work with the biologists to make sure that the right animals are being harvested to allow them to reach their full potential. Our hunt in Kansas, for instance, we passed up, I don't even know how many legal whitetails over the 10 days because we were wanting a fully mature animal.
They're grateful the right to hunt is now guaranteed by voters with the passage of Amendment 2.
Having that right to where now it can't be taken away is a big deal.
Concerns about those rights being eroded are underscored in a recent report by the Council to Advance Hunting and the Shooting Sports. The nationwide study, funded in part by a grant from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, reveals a downward trend in public support for both legal hunting and shooting, dropping from 81% in 2021 to 76% in 2024. Declining public support of hunting and political efforts to ban or restrict hunting and fishing in other states alarmed Florida State Representative Lauren Mello from Naples.
6 states in the U.S., from New Mexico to Oregon to California to Colorado, all had ballot initiatives to literally take away the right to fish and hunt.
Almost all of those initiatives involved specific animals, but each initiative failed. Still, concerned restrictions could happen in Florida. Mello agreed to sponsor the legislation necessary to get the right to hunt and fish amendment on the November ballot and enshrined in the state constitution. Under Florida statutory law, hunting and fishing can be more easily restricted with state lawmakers passing legislation. However, with a constitutional amendment in place, it's substantially more difficult to restrict those same activities because voters decide.
It's a constitutional amendment. The only way to change that is then, once again, to go back and have another constitutional amendment.
That would again require 60% of Florida voters to approve changes, a high threshold difficult to reach. While almost 7 million Floridians approved Amendment 2, more than 3 million did not, including Eve Samples, Executive Director of Friends of the Everglades.
The right to fish and hunt are already very well protected in Florida state statute, specifically Chapter 379. And we didn't see a need for adding that kind of protection into the state constitution.
Samples says they're also opposed to the wording of the measure.
The language in the amendment includes designating fishing and hunting as the preferred method of wildlife management in Florida. And preferred gives us pause because there are a lot of scientifically backed methods of wildlife management that are not hunting. And if we're enshrining one method, hunting, into the state constitution, that could really box us in the future. The other part of the amendment that gave us pause in terms of its phrasing was its preservation of the use of, quote, traditional methods of hunting and fishing. And the amendment didn't define what traditional means. So we had and continue to have major misgivings about whether those traditional methods could bring back harmful practices such as gill netting in Florida.
Representative Mello assures that will not happen.
When I took this legislation on, I sat down with the Florida Wildlife Commission and sat down with their attorneys to ensure that whatever we currently had in law, whatever protections we had existing to protect wildlife, fish, any of the animals, that it stayed in place.
But skeptics believe only time will tell.
The devil's in the details, and we really have to be careful about language we're putting into our state constitution so that it doesn't cause unintended consequences.
In the meantime, Chrissy and Scott say relief is the immediate impact of the passage of Amendment 2, knowing their ability to hunt and fish, their heritage, and family traditions can be passed down in perpetuity.
Now we have a granddaughter, and she's now a fourth generation Floridian on his side of the family. And as she grows up and spends time with us in the woods and out on the water, and having her be able to grow up with that right is important.
I'm Jennifer Crawford reporting for WGCU News.
With the passage of Amendment 2 in Florida, the Sunshine State now joins 22 other states that have enshrined the rights to hunt and or fish in their constitution.